Have you ever wondered about the process involved in the production of the foods you find in the markets and in shops? Well, today on the edition of Planet Rice, one center is here to tell us about the quality or how we can ensure companies stick to the norms in the production to ensure quality and environmental safety. You're watching Planet Rice on Canada English. I'll be right back. Hello and welcome. I'm Regina Leke, your regular host of your favorite TV program, Planet Rice. Now, joining me on the set to talk about how the quality of food production can be improved upon is an agri-food expert. He is the head of training and information for the Centre Technique Agro-Alimentaire in English, and known as the Technical Center for Agri-Food Production in Cameroon. He is Mr. Francis Nlate. Hello and welcome to the program, sir.
Hello, Regina.
It's a pleasure having you on set of Planet Rice. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here also.
Okay, now we'll begin straight with this question. Most environmental experts think the process of food production in Cameroon leaves much to be desired, especially when we look at the respect of environmental norms and standards. Now, do you agree with this expert? And if yes, why?
I will say yes. To be fair to our businesses, they are working hard. Still a lot to do, obviously. That's why we're here for, to talk about it and see how together we could obviously do better.
What is the problem?
I will say the problem is at many levels.
Okay.
First of all is the equipment. First of all is also the knowledge. And thirdly is also about education. When I'm talking about education, it's not just about businesses. It's about the whole populations. We all need to understand that we need to work together for a better country, for a better environment.
Now let's look at industrial waste management, because companies that are involved in food production, of course, have waste.
Yes.
What is the situation of the industrial waste, the management of industrial waste in, let's say, Douala, which is supposed to be the economic capital of Cameroon and, of course, an industrial hub? What is the situation? Can you paint the situation?
I will say it's poor, to be honest. We can't see that altogether. When we walk on the street, we can't say waste on the rivers, waste on the street. From an industrial point of view, there's a lack of knowledge. We need more training, obviously, because we're here also to talk about the problem, but to talk about solutions, and we need obviously to work together. There's also modernizations. We need to make sure the equipment we are using follow the rule. You were talking about norm. Quality is also about making sure that we all follow the rule, the standards.
Now let's look at the environmental impact, because sometimes most of this waste that come from companies are deposited straight into the streams, and some of these streams are consumed by inhabitants of the city of Douala and other parts where there are companies. What would you say is the environmental impact of this sort of poor waste management, especially coming from food companies?
You have a health and safety issues, because some of those waste are toxic. So they are affecting, you could have medical issue. Obviously, we need to do analysis. And this is one of the reason the center you were talking about earlier is having a laboratory, is to make sure we can then analyze waste and see the impact on the populations. You also have the impact on the land, for example, when people are throwing waste. Let's say in a forest or in a river, we have kids, obviously, going to the river to swim. You have the impact of waste on fish. So the impact is quite negative.
So can we say the Vuri River we have here in Douala, it's becoming more and more unsafe? Because if we look around, there are so many companies in Douala. If we have to imagine the amount of waste that is deposited in the Vuri, can we say that the river is becoming maybe unsafe, for, especially for aquatic life?
We can say that is quite dangerous. But obviously, we're here to find solutions. So we're going to work with companies and see how we can obviously promote what we call recycling. Because when you deal with waste, there are a lot of benefits, and we need to talk about that.
Yes.
You have the cost benefit because you're more efficient, so you're saving money. If you're saving money, you also increase your margin. You're making more profit, and you also increase your brand. If you increase your brand, you increase your customers, and you, at the end of the day, we all together in the same boat, which means that it is important for company to make sure the industrial waste is not affecting the environment.
I think exactly my next question really falls in line with what you're already saying, because I was going to ask you that, what do companies stand to gain if they have to actually stick to the norms, if they have to stick to the standards of production that can really help to minimize the environmental impact? What do they stand to gain? Because what we know is that sometimes companies always want the shortcut. But they fail to understand that if you actually stick to the international standard, to the norms that are expected, there are benefits. So maybe for the company owners or directors that may be watching us right now, they may want to understand, why do I need to follow the standard procedure?
They need to keep their business in place, because if you don't follow the standard, you will have bad reputations. If you have a bad reputation, you affect your brand. If you affect your brand, customers are more likely to buy your product. So in the end of the day, you will lose money, and your profit obviously will decrease. So they will gain, obviously, the value of the company obviously will get bigger if they follow the rule and make sure they respect the environment. And we live in a world now, people are asking questions about the quality of what they are using. We live in a world now, people care about the environment, the impact of everyone on every actions in environment. We can learn so much from some of the country, for example, like in England, where you have companies putting boxing markets to allow customers to come and to put waste.
Yes, I think we are going to talk more about that when we want to look at some of the solutions, and especially some of the things that your center is doing. But I was going to ask a question. I mean, in all of this, what is the role of the government? Because I believe that the government should be kind of regulatory, body. What role can the government play to ensure that food companies and other companies stick to the standard in a way that can reduce, pollution in the environment?
For example, if I take the sector I'm working, the government is doing quite a lot in terms of, we're talking about regulation. The regulation is there. We just need to make sure people do follow the regulations.
Okay.
And to follow the regulations, we need everyone to work together. We need, first of all, to educate the populations that the regulation is in place, because we don't have many people knowing that. We also need to educate businesses, because it's true that some of them want to take shortcut, but it's also some of them also they don't sometimes have the knowledge. They don't even know there's regulations about that. This one of the reasons the center is there, to educate and make people aware that it's not just about productions, it's about the quality of your production is sustainable production, and making sure it doesn't impact the negatively the environment.
Now that actually brings me to my next question. Centre Technique Agro-Alimentaire is the name of your center, which came into existence some years back. Just want to find out from you, what were some of the surrounding circumstances that led to the birth of this structure? Because I understand, before an organization comes to light, there must be some problems that its founders have realized. What are some of the problems that you guys realized and said, no, we have to put up this structure in order to attack these problems? What were the circumstances that led to the birth?
Okay. I will focus mainly on environmental reason why the center is there.
Okay.
Because there is an economic reasons.
We can also talk about
Okay.
it. There's no problem.
Because as many people know, we just signed a treaty with Europe 1 year and a half or 2 years ago about trade, which means that some of the European product will come here without any taxes.
Okay.
And our product also will be able to go to the European market without any taxes. But we need to make sure that our businesses, the quality of their product is up there to the European standards. That's why in that sector, the business people of this country sat together and decide and asked the government, we need a technical center, because that technical center will be able to help us get to that level. That's the main reason now. From an environment point of view, the center is there because when you talk about environment, you're talking about processes.
Yes.
You talk about productions. You need to make sure your production is up to the standard. You need to make sure, you need to talk about innovations. So those kind of area, the center will be able to work with businesses to make sure they have the latest equipment, to make sure they have the equipment which doesn't affect the environment.
Yeah, so what exactly did you notice? What was the problem in Cameroon as far as the food production companies are concerned that, I mean, environmentally speaking, as you said, that forced you guys to say, like, look, we have to do this. We have to come up with this organization.
I'm going to take two examples. The first one is everyone can notice that one. Market. If you go to the market in the evening, you will see food dumping everywhere.
They're talking about food wastage.
Food wastage. D'accord, thank you. So here the center can help.
Yeah, because sometimes when you go to our markets, you realize you find heaps of oranges that have just been dumped somewhere, tomatoes that are rotten, they are just dumped somewhere. First of all, it's an environmental nuisance.
Exactly.
And in those ways also, I understand lies riches that could be gotten from if maybe well managed, well transformed. Maybe you want to enlighten us more about
exactly. That. We could earn money by just, we also need to remember that in this country, some people still not being able to eat.
Exactly.
So this, from that point of view, is also waste. So what we can do then is train those people, first of all, in how to keep those foods. We could also help them go to the next level, which is transformations of those products. This is where the center also can help. This is food wastage. We can also look at, for example, let's say industrial wastage.
Now, before we go to industrial wastage, I would just like us to talk more about food wastage, which to me, I think it's so common and it affects everyday man, because even myself, I can say sometimes I am guilty. Like exactly. I can have a bunch of plantains and before I know it is ripe and rotten and I find myself throwing. And sometimes when I'm throwing, I usually feel very bad. I'm like, there are people who don't even have food to eat and you know we are throwing this food. So how do you advise a common man to be able to preserve his food? I mean, even market women who sell oranges, sometimes they are overpowered because they don't really know what to do. Is that something they can do?
Yes, of course. If you look, probably you and me weren't born, how do you think our parents used to do to keep foods? The knowledge is there. People, we just need to do sensitization. Yeah, exactly. We just need to make sure that people know exactly what they need to do. But we also need company, not like people say in the UK, because sometimes you have a company selling, I'm going to take biscuit, putting 12 biscuit in a packet when someone sometimes want to eat 2 or 3. 12 is a lot. So what they do there is in terms of packaging, just for example, making available the 12 for people who have big families and making a package of maybe 3 or 4 biscuits for people who just want to eat 2 or 3. This is how we can help businesses in terms of making sure they are not selling too much. Okay. In terms of people, it's just about educations. It's about introducing food wastage, for example, at school. That's one of the solutions, or at university as a program.
Oh, that sounds...
This is, yeah, exactly. But for that one, we need obviously to lobby the government
I mean, so if we can have a program that educates young people in primary, secondary school, university level about how they can manage food in order that we don't waste, it will really help to improve the situation.
Exactly.
Now, exactly, can you tell us practically what are some of the activities that your center carries out? The Agri Food Technical Center.
The main one in terms of environments, we have two activities. Okay. The first one is the training and development. Okay. We have modules available in terms of environment management or food management, where we train managers or businesses or directors on how to manage their waste. We have those modules available in the center. Some of those modules are delivered by myself.
Okay.
Now, from a production and process point of view, we just make sure that the equipment they are using is up to the standard. That equipment can manage waste also.
Yes, not like I'm trying to cut you short. I remember in our discussions before we came on air, we were like talking about the fact that the problem of waste, especially let's look at industrial waste management. It's really alarming because most of the instruments they use are obsolete. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, in that point, the issue is there's also, we need to look at the financial. Some of those companies don't have the finance to, obviously, because innovation costs a lot of money, and some of those companies doesn't have the finance always to renew the equipment or to renew the process. So then, in that case, the government can help by providing some of the funds or by subsidizing some of those stuff. And I think there are initiatives already in place by the government, but that's not enough. The private sector also.
What are some of the initiatives that are being put in place, and why do you say they are not enough?
They are not enough because obviously it doesn't work. So there's something else we need to do. We all know that it doesn't work now. If you look, for example, we were talking about, I don't want to name any companies, we were talking about the amount of bottles we found, obviously, on the street.
They are just everywhere. I mean, like, if you go to Down Beach in Limbe, you'll just find that it's like the sea is kind of vomiting the amount of plastics, out on the shore. And we own the effects on the environment. There are so many. We have seen situations where fishes die because they consume these plastics, and when they come offshore, when they come on shore, when you operate their stomach, we see tons of plastics. There is much more that companies need to do, don't you think?
Exactly, I agree with that. We talk earlier. For example, just imagine a case where we have like a box in every supermarket or in some of the cities, in some of the places within the city, where those people can put either plastic bag or can put the bottle they have to drink. That will save a lot of money for those companies. But the people, the population also need to know that it is in their own interest to make sure the environment is safe. So we also need to educate
because
people.
We have seen situations where poor handling of plastics have also contributed towards things like disasters like floods.
Exactly.
And if there are floods, there is a population that suffers. So it's important for the population to understand that they have a role to play. That's one of the reasons why we are doing this. That's one of the reasons why Planet Rice was born, to actually show how we all can be a solution to some of the problems our environment is facing. Now, I would just like to find out who are your stakeholders? Who are the people that you work with?
Our stakeholders, the main ones are businesses.
Okay.
Yeah. The state, the population also are stakeholders. It is their own interest because the technical center work for quality. When I'm talking quality, it's not just the quality of food, it's the making sure the quality of the processes, to make sure people respect the norm and they don't affect the environment when they are doing the production.
Okay. Now, Mr. Nlate, I was also going to find out something from you. For maybe like companies or businesses that really are worried about some of the impact that they are causing on the environment and they want to change, how do they get to you people?
How do they get to
Is
us?
it like you people have seminars or they can visit you in your office? How do you work with people who really want to improve the way they manage their production, that for it to meet standards and quality?
Yeah, we have seminars, we have trainings. We can train the staff in terms of waste management. We can also help when they want to renew the equipment. We can advise in telling them what is good or what is not good.
So how do you collaborate, okay, now let's say with government actors, in order to bring this much needed change in food production?
We have what we call a committee with some of the ministers in Cameroon, economy minister, agricultural minister, industrial minister. We have like 5 ministers. We work together, and the European Union also. We work together to find solutions about specific issues in that sector. In terms of the people who want to get to us, we are obviously in Bonapriso. They can drop us an email, but they just need to be member, which is because we need to remember that the center is an idea coming from businesses in this country, saying, you know what, we need to work together to make sure that we follow the rules and make things better.
Okay, for the short time that you've been existing, what have been some of the success stories? Do you think that you've been able to change mindsets? Do you think that you've been able to really like impact businesses in a way that, promote, this sustainable food production?
Yes. One of the projects we're working at the moment is called what we call fair trade. And it is with France, Haiti, and Mexico. Okay. And that project is what? We found out, for example, producers at the moment are not getting enough money for what they produce. So what we're trying to do is we've created a label where people know exactly the food chain to make sure that it's respecting every of the standards. And that program is, to be fair, is quite successful. We've also delivered many trainings myself. I've done many trainings.
Yeah, because from your profile, you are in charge of training and information.
Yes.
Information, which is what you are teaching us today.
Exactly. So I've delivered many trainings in some of the businesses in terms of how to manage waste and to make sure that in terms of advantage of recycling, you were talking about here. You asked me the questions, what company gained by following the rules. I also delivered some of those trainings so they can understand, because that's the key. A company wants to make money, so you always need to link together. Whatever you ask them to do, you always need to make sure they understand that the actions later on they are going to have profit. So we need to link.
Exactly. I think a moment ago we were discussing about, the fact that a lot of people this day care about the environment and are willing to contribute towards, a positive handling of the environment. And we have seen situations like in other parts of the country. Well, the concept is still developing here in Cameroon, where companies are really trying to be more eco-friendly.
Yeah.
Most of the things they do, they want to make people to understand that they are putting their impact on the environment is very minimized. And that also has a role to play in the mindset of their consumers.
Exactly.
Because for example, I always say I would prefer to buy a good that actually tries as much as possible to respect the environmental norms, that has a very little environmental footprint, than another company which doesn't care, that's just about trying to make profits. So what is the word you're sending out to companies today about the importance of being eco-friendly?
They will have to, if not they will disappear. We need to be,
very
clear with that and straightforward. It's not a matter of playing games. They really need to be eco-friendly. You can't just look at every country now. In every country now, those big companies are doing their best to be eco-friendly. It doesn't matter which company it is, the McDonald's, the Apples, all are playing the game because they do understand now it is important to respect the environment. It is important to follow the rule. And as a center, again, we are thinking to create a label for those, which is going to be a value where a consumer can look at a label and be sure that company obviously is taking care about the environment, is respecting the environment. I think that will be one of the obviously and insensitive to encourage them to be able to do that.
Well, since as we are talking about the problem of, production, waste, and all of that, there's just something I would like to find out from you. I mean, when you look at the city of Douala, sometimes I'm ashamed to call it my city. I mean, there are people who have called it, like in French, ville poubelle. Where do you think the problem is, and what do you think can be done to, actually get rid of the huge tons of waste we find around major streets in the city?
Let's be clear. We are responsible at different level. We have obviously the government, we suppose obviously to be in charge of the regulations. You also have the councils, the local councils, who are not doing enough. They need to collect waste, for example. Are they doing that? No, they are not doing that. The population who is also throwing bottles everywhere.
Yes, you were just
bags.
saying that there are you see sometimes you go to, an area where waste is supposed to be dumped. There's actually a can for you to deposit waste, but people come and they don't put it there.
Exactly.
They prefer to put it outside.
Exactly.
But sometimes also it's also because of the fact that some of these cans are full and overflowed.
That's exactly where the local council needs to work hard. Businesses, they have to need a process where they can separate waste and manage them, because that's the way it should be done. You need to separate waste. For example, you need to separate, I'm going to use an example everyone can understand. You need to separate waste, for example, bottle from a plastic, or from food, or from paper.
Separating, I think we
Exactly.
discussed that some time ago, the importance of, separating, putting a container for biodegradable waste, non-biodegradable waste,
Exactly.
which also is recycling.
Exactly. But all those stuff are happening because of lack of leadership. Someone needs to take leadership in Douala and say, you know what, enough is enough. And then bring all the people together and say, this is what we need to do.
Now we're coming towards the end of the program, but Mr. Nlate, before you go, just one word. I mean, if you were to advise companies, Cameroonians and the government about what they can do to ameliorate production, what would that be?
What would that be? I will probably say more training. Money is not money. You can get money somewhere, but the knowledge is just make sure we have such a beautiful country. We just need to use what we have. So if I need to advise, is more training. For example, a quick example is we have solar energy. For example, we can use that.
Renewable source of energy.
Renewable source of energy. We could use that. Even those plastic bags can be used. We just need to be smart. So I think my advice is, as we said earlier, we need to have a program at schools, primary, college, university, how to manage waste. And obviously that will create more jobs, that will give more opportunities, and we will be a leader in that field. People will come here to learn from us.
Thank you so much for coming. I mean, you are Mr. Francis Nlate. You are in charge of training and information at the Centre Technique Agro-Alimentaire, in English, Technical Center for Agri Food in Cameroon. It was such a pleasure having you on set, sir.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, and that's how we saw it for this edition of Planet Rice on Canada English. Thanks for watching. Of course, you can follow us on all our social media platforms. On Facebook, you can search us Planet Rice. On Twitter, Planet Rice. Send us your messages. If you think you're doing something positive for the environment and you're interested to come on the show, you can write to us on our Facebook page. It's been a pleasure having you. See you in a fortnight for another exciting edition of your favorite program, Planet Rice. Goodbye.